What I do support is trying to teach students not only news literacy, but how to use their phones in a healthier manner, because that's just a second education that's going on. As soon as they leave the classroom, they're getting pummeled by media from even in middle school. They're encountering news, you can call it news in quotes, every single day on social media. So we need to sort of help students as they leave the classroom.
Welcome back to another episode of Shifting Schools. I'm your host, Jeff Udick, and today we're diving into one of the most urgent challenges facing education right now. How do we teach news literacy in a world where misinformation moves faster than facts? To help us unpack that, I'm joined by Jack Brewster, former Forbes journalist, investigative editor, and now the founder of Newsreel.co, a breakthrough app built to help students develop healthy, informed relationships with the news. Jack's no stranger to the front lines of misinformation. From covering the Trump campaign to exposing viral hoaxes and extremism online, his career has been rooted in truth-telling. But these days, he's focused on a different mission, helping young people tune into high-quality news, not out of it. In this conversation, we'll explore how Newsreel is reimagining news delivery for Gen Z by blending journalistic integrity with TikTok-style design. What happens when students answer 3,100 quiz questions in one class? Yes, you heard that right. And what that says about the power of embedded news literacy. The rising role of AI in journalism, both as a tool and a threat, and what that means for the next generation of storytellers is something we also get into in today's episode. And why we can't rely on old school delivery systems to solve 21st century information problems. Whether you're a teacher navigating phones in the classroom, a school leader thinking about media literacy curriculum, or a parent wondering what your teen is watching online, this episode is for you. Jack reminds us that the crisis of misinformation isn't a content problem, it's a product problem. And the future of truth-telling might just depend on how we help students consume, question, and talk about the news. So buckle up, it's time to rethink how we teach and trust the news. With that, on with the show. All right, welcome back to another episode of Shifting Schools. Excited to bring you this fun conversation today with Jack Brewster, the CEO creator of Newsreel, which we're going to get into here in just a bit. Jack, thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule. Excited to hear more about Newsreel.co as we get started. Before I ask you my first question, let's learn a little bit about your background. I just learned this before we started recording. You just started this app back in October. So a new venture for you. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
No, thanks, Jeff. And thank you for bringing me on this podcast. I'm excited to be here and talk about news literacy and AI and misinformation and the crazy world that we live in right now. I'm a journalist. I used to work at Forbes magazine, where I covered the Trump campaign, the second one, not the third, and misinformation and online extremism. And then I left and went to a company called NewsGuard, which also works with schools and other companies. And it actually is a misinformation watchdog. And I was their investigative editor, covered everything from QAnon to the rise of misinformation on TikTok to, I don't know if you remember the debate last year, but I was the reporter that broke the story about the source of that viral false claim about Haitian migrants eating cats and dogs. Tracked down the woman who originally posted that on Facebook, which is a great story. So that's my background, but I've always been obsessed with the idea of news avoidance and why young people are tuning out from the news and what journalists can do to help them. And so that's why I started Newsreel. And Newsreel is a news app that launched in February, and we partner with schools to help educators help students launch a news habit, launch a relationship to high quality news. And so our bread and butter is habit forming, giving students a new kind of way of engaging with the news that fits their way of understanding media, that's digestible, interactive, and engaging, and educators' stats on how the students are actually consuming that news.
Oh, that's very cool. Well, let's get started then with our, and we'll continue to talk about the app. Again, if you want to check it out for yourself, it's newsreel.co. We'll be talking more about that throughout the podcast as well. But this idea about given the rise of misinformation, which is huge right now, and I know a lot of teachers are really focused on, and the importance of media literacy in K-12 education, how are you seeing teachers start to leverage Newsreel and enhance students' critical thinking around new literacy and this new skill of just misinformation?
So what's been really exciting is in a few schools this past spring, this past semester, we had actually like classes, schools embed newsreel in their classes, and
Hmm.
so what they did was require students to use newsreel for a certain number of days during the course of the semester. And then we were able to track that on the back end. And so we could give students, the teachers could give students a grade based on whether or not they completed 20 days of using Newsreel.
Hmm.
And then we not only were able to do that, but since we asked students to a quiz question at the end of every single story, we were able to test students' news literacy levels over the course of the semester and see when it went up, when it went down, and which students were doing well, which students weren't, which quiz questions gave us classes particular trouble. In
Yeah.
one class at Penn State, students in just one class of 250 students answered 31,000 quiz questions,
Wow.
which is absolutely bonkers. I
Wow.
had no idea that that was going to be the amount of data that we were collecting. But if you do
Wow.
the math, that's it's 31,000 quiz questions on the news. So we're
Wow.
really proud of that after just being around for just a few months.
That's pretty cool. And what is, maybe walk us through for those of us that are new to this. Is this just an app for your phone? Is it also web-based? What's the user experience like? Just give us a little insight into what that looks like.
Yeah, so we built Newsreel to be basically for news curious young people. That's what we set out to do originally. So it is just phone based right now. It will
Okay.
be web based by the fall as well, so we can offer like different kinds of like learning opportunities.
Good.
But this is meant to try and pull students away from TikTok and Instagram, where they're getting 90% of their news for just a few minutes every day, and show them how they can have a healthy relationship to their phone as
Hmm.
well as the news,
I
because
love that.
that is such an issue right now. And we see all these schools banning phones. And I won't go into whether to support that or not. It can be very complicated. But
Yeah.
what I do support is trying to teach students not only news literacy, but how to use their phones
Yeah.
in a healthier manner, because
Yeah.
that's just a second education that's going on. As soon as they leave the classroom, they're getting pummeled by media from even in middle school. They're encountering news. You could
Yeah.
call it news in quotes every single day on social
Yep.
media. So we need to sort of help students
Yeah.
as they leave the classroom.
Being a journalist, do you have any of the, and maybe I'm asking you a question because we don't plan this beforehand. So feel free to say, like, I don't know, Jeff. That's totally fine too. Do you have any statistics like the misinformation, for example, on TikTok? Because you're absolutely right. I am hearing this from teachers and teachers over and over again that kids are coming in, and we know this, we've seen the trends. Nobody is sitting down and watching Cronkite at 6:30 at night. Nobody does it. I mean, not any of the generation we're talking about sits down and does that. We're talking about these small pieces of information. We're talking about TikTok is the number one search engine now for students in our schools. And for better or for worse, there is misinformation on there. And I think one of the things that's even harder is that we don't see it. The adults in these children's lives don't see what they're being exposed to.
Yeah.
Can you maybe talk about like what are some of the, maybe, and I don't know if you have research or you've looked into this just in social media itself, what are some of the things that these kids are seeing in these apps?
I love how you talk about TikTok being used as a search engine. So when I was at NewsGuard, the last company that I worked for, which is, as I said, a misinformation watchdog, we conducted, me and a team of researchers, a study where we actually looked at TikTok's search
Mm,
engine. And for like, I think we ran like 500 or 1,000 searches across several different researchers, and found that 1 in 5 search results about the news are misinformation.
wow.
So 1 in 5 videos, when you search topics about the news, 20% of the time you will be fed misinformation. So
Wow.
that shows just the power of TikTok's search engine for relaying misinformation, but also just the soup that sort of people are swimming in every single day when they
Yeah.
go on TikTok and Instagram. I'm not, against it being used as a news source. I use it as a news source sometimes. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I like it. I every once in a while I catch myself doom scrolling, but
Yeah.
there are reliable journalists on there. There are reliable news influencers and creators. This is the world that we're occupying, whether we like it or not. But there's certainly also a lot of misinformation because the good thing about the internet is that everyone's a journalist. The bad thing about the internet is that everyone's a journalist.
Well, and you bring that up, and it's so good because it's yeah, 1 in 5 are misinformation, but also understanding the way that and this is I love explaining this to students because I feel like a lot of students don't understand the way that algorithm, specifically TikTok's algorithm works. If you choose the news story that is misinformation, that gets fed to the algorithm that there's more likely you're now going to get the next misinformation story, right? And next thing you know, you don't even know it's misinformation anymore because it's all you're seeing, right? And on the flip side, you're not going to do away with it. And I think it's getting to the point where TikTok has, even for myself, overtaking what used to be Twitter/X.
Hmm.
For example, we're recording this right after the Mexican ship hit the Brooklyn Bridge and
Hmm.
the masses came down and everything. I would have gone to, even just 8 months ago, 10 months ago, myself, I'm older. So, TikTok's later for me. But I'm now finding myself that if I want to see footage of that, people are posting that footage on places like TikTok, where that might have been before your first place to go would have been
Yep.
Twitter. I think that you're going for that journalistic, everybody's a journalist, grab your phone, take a video of while the masses are coming down type of thing. And so, for better or for worse, these platforms are the platforms that kids are going to engage with. Understanding how to level that up and think about what that means, I think, is a critical piece. The other piece I want us to talk about, with you being a journalist, is preparing students for the future of work. And with the workforce rapidly evolving due to all these technological changes, there's a growing emphasis on the skills that are needed and what it means to be a journalist today. Can you maybe talk about? I'm a teacher, I'm teaching literacy class in middle school or high school. I have students who want to be sports reporters or they want to cover the news. They want to, what are some of the skills as we kind of look forward into being a journalist in the future? What are some of those skills and stuff that you're kind of thinking on and reflecting on now to say, you know what, these are the things we need to support a generation in understanding what to do?
So when it comes to that question, I'm not only thinking about social media, but also, of course, AI.
Yeah.
AI is going to rapidly change the way that journalists think about themselves, their role. It's going to completely take away Google when it comes to writing stories that get surfaced there and answers to people's queries. So
Yeah.
people are going to go to, whether we like it or not, AI and TikTok for answers, right? And
Hmm.
so the old paradigm where journalists could be part of the equation when it came to answering people's questions is really going to go by the wayside. There will be some explainer journalism that will need to be done, of course, and I want it to be
Sure.
done, but I'm
Yeah.
just people's news habits are going to rapidly change. And so, where do journalists fit? Where do they where do they deliver value in this changing news ecosystem? I
Hmm.
think it's in getting back to the roots of telling really good stories in clever ways. And so,
Mm.
what does that mean for young journalists? That means two things. One, being versed in every single kind of medium, podcasting, learning how to create TikTok videos, not only like to film yourself, but also to edit and clip them because you're going to be required to do that at your next job. To being able to generate infographics. So,
Mm.
being a Swiss Army knife is going to be really, really important. The second thing is in investigative and journalism. AI will always beat you when it comes to answers to things.
Hmm.
It will not beat you yet at doing hardcore investigative journalism, open source intelligence report, picking up the phone and finding sources
Yeah.
and getting the scoops that I don't think yet. It probably will at some point. AI can't do that yet. So those
Yeah.
two things I think are the sort of gaps that
Mm.
AI can't do yet and won't be able to do that journalists really need to lean into. Other than that, I mean, I guess there's one more thing I would say. Authenticity has become really, really important when we think about social media, particularly, and with AI, because AI is the least authentic possible, but
Yeah.
people are really crave authenticity on social media. That's how they sort of think about trust now. And
Yeah.
so, learning how to cultivate that, I think, particularly as a journalist, but also learning from creators and what they're doing, is going to be really, really important for young journalists as well.
No, I love that. And I can only imagine some teacher listening to this saying, now I've got to teach how to make TikToks in my class. And the answer to that is, yeah, you do. And it doesn't have to be on the TikTok class, on the TikTok platform, but you could have students create short informational clips that are just video files off their phone or video files on their Chromebook, or right. How do you explain yourself in short video format? Getting back to newsreel.co, what's my engagement in there for a younger generation? Is it more TikToky short videos? Are kids given, are we actually doing reading in there? What's the kind of media that's inside the app?
So, great question. So, Newsreel is all their news right in there right now is produced by us, and basically, what I can describe it as is it's almost like if Duolingo and New York Times had a baby. That's the easiest way I can explain it. It's card based. It has all different kinds of media. So it is written by us. So it's cards as you swipe them, but it has TikTok videos. It has tweets or X posts,
Yeah.
infographics, but it's all written like a regular story. It's almost like a social media and legacy news came together. And that's how
Wow.
we design it. We want it to sort of be pushing news forward at the same time as we teach the value of like hardcore journalistic principles of writing good lead, conveying news in a nut graph. We're just using various types of media to tell stories, which is what I think journalists need to do. Give people a reason to come to your story that's different than just what AI can do, right? We
Mm,
need to make stories experiences, and that's what Newsreel does.
I love that. Let's talk a little bit about AI. Is AI used in newsreel.co at all? Or
Will be to in I can if you want me to answer, I can describe very briefly like how we're planning to use it. Yes, I think there's much value in writing story. It's very bland. It's kind of boring. I use it to surface information to queries on like history and how to replace a spare tire. But
yeah,
I when it comes to news, it's kind of boring, and so
yeah.
we don't use it to write the stories. We have
Mm,
journalists do that. But I do think there will be value very soon in like offering basically like tooltips about certain cards. Like we write in
sure.
card format
Yeah.
in our app because we can be very hyper personalized to how does this matter to me, like me specifically. What does this term mean? What is reconciliation, right?
Yeah.
Journalists don't want to write that out for everybody, but AI
Sure.
can do that, and so that's
Yeah.
the value that I want to add:
Ooh, I
tooltips
love
in
that.
our app.
That's very, very cool. In your journalistic workflow, I'm trying to help, like, okay, if I'm a teacher who's teaching journalism, where are the parts that there's still the human thing? Like you're saying, like, and I agree with you, like the storytelling piece, like that's a human thing. It doesn't do very well. We're all getting better to be able to say, like, that's AI. Like you can just tell, right? It's not human yet. But within your own workflow as a journalist, this idea of like, where are you finding that AI is fitting within your workflow? So for, like you just said, background data, like, hey, I need to know about the Mexican Navy because
Mhm.
the ship just lost it, like, and I just don't know, like, I don't
Mhm.
know, like, I need some quick, where you might have gone to Google, right? Or even before that, we'd have to go to the library and go down into the belly of the library and do microfiche. Now there's a couple people laughing because there's probably only a couple of us that remember microfiche that are on this podcast. But how are you seeing it fit in your workflow? Is it being an editor for you? Is it doing some other things? Kind of maybe explain that.
It's a really good intern editor. If there was an intern that could be an editor, that's a really kind of an oxymoron because it's very good at making headlines better, giving me variations on headlines.
Okay.
Very good at tweaking a lead that is a little bit too jargony or a little bit windy, as one of my editors used to say. It
Yeah.
tightens it up. It's very eager. It gets it wrong sometimes. So
Yeah.
you need to have the senior editor come in and evaluate the intern editor
Yeah.
and what they did. But I've used it. I use it constantly, every single day to edit. And
Yeah.
so that's where I see its value. Every once in a while, I think it does do a pretty good job of saying, I'll throw a piece in there that I've completed and I'll say, am I missing anything? Am I missing a
Mm,
perspective?
yeah.
You can train a chatbot to be entirely focused on that. Like,
Yeah.
what elements of the story is this missing? And every once in a while, every like third time, it'll be pretty good.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's so incredible the way that this is moving. If I'm a teacher and I say I get this for my class, what does that look like for me? What data am I seeing behind the scenes? You talked a little bit about being able to see these quizzes. What does that look like? Is there a benefit of just allowing kids to have it, or how? What's your structure right now of how that works if a school decides to come in and use it?
Yeah, we saw either at the school level, so like as just like a regular news source that they can administer through classes or libraries. So at high schools, we're at public libraries too, just like as like a regular news source offering. And like there's value there with at public libraries even too, right? If parents wanting to introduce their kids to news, and just also just honestly parents. There we have some parents who are subscribers who are also just overwhelmed by news right now and
Yeah,
want
of
something like
course.
this. Yeah, that's one use case for classes. Basically, what it is like the professor can required in his or her class, and then we can create a cohort for them. And so,
Hmm.
for let's say I have a class of 30 people, and I want to require my students to read it for 10 days during the school year, or I don't know, 30 days in a row during the school year.
Yeah.
Then there'll be data on every single student, like how long did they read, how many days in a row did they read Newsreel, how are they scoring on quizzes? How much time are they spending in the app? We have polling coming very soon as well. So you'll
Oh,
be able to
cool.
see all of this data. Which questions are students missing? How are students feel about stories? It becomes this sort of like almost this like social
Mm,
experience within classrooms, which I think is just needed right now. And that's our goal, right? We don't want
yeah.
people to become good newsreel readers. We want them to in class and in their everyday lives have better conversations about news. That's why we read news.
Yeah.
We're social animals. We want to talk about things and be able to talk about them and have the background knowledge to do so. And unfortunately, social media doesn't always do a good job of giving us the full story, but
Yeah.
the newsreel does.
Very cool. And I'm already even thinking in my mind, I'm thinking, man, I know some online schools or some teachers who teach online classes that if you were teaching, media literacy and current events, like even if you're an online teacher, to know that every kid has an app that you are able to see what did they read? How are they understanding it? What does this look like? Even though they're not physically in me to have those conversations, I can still have a community feel from afar through the information that we're all reading and consuming.
Yeah.
How
One thing on that, Jeff, you wouldn't mind?
Yeah,
Yeah, just sorry, really quick. Like, I went into a class at I won't say which university, like a university, not a high school, last fall, and I asked the teacher to, where she thought her students got their news,
yeah,
and she said, I think probably some newsletters and
yeah,
maybe some Instagram and TikTok. There was everything from a student who read the New York Times and Washington Post every day to a student who I kid you not told me that he gets all of his news from a talking fish on TikTok. So that showed me just the
yeah,
vast gulf, right, between
yeah,
this teacher's students
yeah,
and how there wasn't really a shared experience, right?
yeah,
Like, we're so far removed from that, and we're
yeah.
never going to go back to that. But in
No,
classrooms, we have to have that because
yeah,
we don't have a shared news experience. I'm not saying that newsreel is a be all end all, but it is incredibly hard to have good conversations about
yeah,
current events, politics, history,
yeah.
anything.
Well, and to your point, even if you just go back, I mean, the internet's only been around since about 96. Before 1996, we all had the same experience. We all watched the nightly news. We all read the local paper or the New York Times or the national paper. But so we were, whether you were in the classroom or whether you were in the coffee house, there was a shared experience because there were limited news outlets. Versus today, you can learn from a talking fish or you can learn from the Washington Post. Like you've got the gamut of things that you can learn from.
Exactly.
And I think you're right. I think we need something, especially in our classrooms, of like, how do we make sure that we're all speaking the same language or
Hmm.
we're all making sure we're having the same sources? With that, your idea here is to support people in making sure that the news is correct and the misinformation news. What do you do at Newsreel to kind of make sure that the truth comes out and that you're being factual in the reporting that you're doing? Are you all in, or is it all in-house
Hmm.
researchers and journalists?
Yeah, we have a
Okay.
small. I mean, we're
Okay.
it's all a lot of ex Forbes journalists and ex Legacy News journalists who. So it's trained journalistic principles of fact checking, of editors, of issuing corrections when if and we get things wrong, which every journalist does.
Sure.
So yeah, we're grounded in old school journalistic principles, but we're just doing it much differently, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we think our thesis is, that news avoidance, misinformation, all of these problems that we talked about is a product problem. It's not a
Mm,
content problem. There
I
is
love that.
high quality information out there. It's just that the pipelines, the newspapers that we're using are
Yeah.
TikTok and Instagram, and
Yeah.
that's editors are, right? The algorithms are the modern day editor.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that even for teachers is like there's still a system. There's still a system we rely on to make sure the news is supposed to be. The system still works. It's a delivery problem. And that's what we're trying to fix with newsreel.co. I'm just over on newsreel.co's website, and on your homepage, you've got all these universities: Colgate University, Ithaca College, Toronto Metropolitan University. They're just scrolling across here of all the places that you're already involved with. Are you involved already with some K-12 schools? Have you started to impact
Yeah.
down here?
We didn't list them on the site.
Sure.
I had need to
That's
ask.
okay. I don't know if you're there yet.
Yes, we are, and that was a big, that's a big emphasis for us going into this upcoming fall, as we're trying to partner with as many high schools and middle schools as we possibly can. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Other than newsreel.co, Jack, if people want to reach out to you, if they want to follow, if they want to learn more, where are some other places that they should check out?
I post constantly on LinkedIn about my thoughts on AI and media literacy. I will be starting a newsletter pretty soon, but for now, if they want to reach out to me, LinkedIn or my email, jack@newsreel.co, feel free to email me. Every good journalist should respond to reader emails, so I will respond.
We'll make sure all of that is in the show notes. So if you were listening to this in the car, you can go over, make sure you follow on LinkedIn, and reach out and go check it out, newsreel.co. Right now on the website, there's sign up for a wait list. If I'm a teacher, what's my first step here? What do I do?
Book a demo at the top right. Yeah, it's right there. So
Okay.
you can either send me an email or go to our site, press fill out the form, and book a demo, which is at the top right.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack, for being here today. Really appreciate it. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for creating an incredible that is trying to bring news to the generation that is being raised, for better or for worse, in the era of misinformation, and trying to do your part in supporting them and supporting all of us in education to make sure we're doing the right thing by kids. So appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, Jeff. I appreciate it too.